G'day people, I'm Sharon and welcome to this series of tutorials on Janomi's Continental M17. Firstly, huge thanks to my friend Catherine who has loaned me her machine. Without her doing that, I would definitely not be making these tutorials. Nothing in your Continental M17 requires a huge amount of force to make it happen. If you're pulling to try and open up the lid, it's because you haven't found the button. If you're trying to pull on the spindles to get them to come up, it's because you haven't seen the switch. Similarly, it's not hard to get the needle plate out as long as you know the right button to press on the screen. Keep that in mind as you're sewing. Most of these things do not require a huge amount of force, they just need you to know where to press something. This is the button for opening the top of the CM17. With the lid of my machine up, I pull across here. That brings my spindles up. This is my thread guide which telegraphs up, and I know it's going to be off screen. To wind a bobbin, put the thread on the one on the right, over the top of the telegraph. Through number 2 there are actually images at the back that tells you where you're supposed to go. Through number 2 and click it in firmly around that little tension disc. Fold your thread so that you've got something a bit firmer to use, and then push it through from the inside to the outside of the bobbin. Hold it up, click across the little guide here, and then press the button with a bobbin on it here. Once I've got that wound enough so that if I cut it off it's not going to unwind, I then cut it off very close to the bobbin and press the button again. So this is a switch that turns the bobbin winder on and off. When the bobbin is full, this will move over and the little motor that is winding the bobbin will stop. I'm not actually going to unwind that or undo it at the moment. It is perfectly possible with these machines to have thread still sitting there waiting to wind bobbins, and in fact to wind bobbins whilst you are also sewing. I've taken my second reel of thread, which is the one that I'm going to thread the top of the machine with. I've gone over the top, which is number 1. I come to number 2 and click it in properly, and then there's a number 3 here, which means I go under the metal part around to 4. On the front of the machine there's a lock, and you should always have your machine locked while you're threading. From number 4 at the top here, I come down to number 5, up, around. When I go around that take-up lever, I almost always will hold the thread near the reel and grab the thread that's just been through the take-up lever and give it a bit of a tug. And in doing that, I'm making sure that the thread is bedded down into the tension discs, which are between 4 and 5. Make sure that the thread is properly in that take-up lever. If it's not, it doesn't make stitches properly. We then go through the guide at number 7, and then the guide that is just above the needle. At this point, take it through, the thread through the little V-shaped piece, around, over, and cut the end off. At the top here you can see I have a light next to my threading symbol, and my needle is now threaded. I need to make sure that I pull that through from the back and the top of the machine is threaded. At this stage I can turn the lock off, and you can see that in addition to having a lock on the main screen, I also have one here. The final thing I need to do with my bobbin is lift it off, take it over here to the right, and there's a cutter here, so if I go through there and pull, that cuts the thread. Put the bobbin, like a letter P, into the bobbin case. Bring it down to the front, and we go under that guide follow the numbers around. There's a number 1, 2 and across to the right. It cuts it off, and then put the needle plate cover in and clip it down. When I have the lock on the machine, you can see here there's an arrow that looks like it's opening a book, and if we watch over here, this is what happens. So the foot was raised and the needle plate was let loose for me. There's actually a very strong magnet in there, and this machine has got multiple needle plates. This is the one for doing regular sewing, and you can tell that because it's got a big wide mark there. The machine actually knows which one it's got on it, and if I put one on that it can only do straight stitch with, it will only let me do straight stitch. This is the one for regular sewing and zigzag. If I was going to do embroidery, I need to put a different needle plate in here, and that's how you get it in. Put it back in, slide in from the right and down, and I can X out of there. And then I need to unlock the machine. The only real differences when you're threading up your machine for embroidery rather than regular sewing is that you will use bobbin fill in the bobbin. And the reason we do that is that bobbin fill is a much finer, lighter weight thread. It is less strong, so you certainly don't want to be sewing garments with it, but because it is finer, you can get more meters of it onto a bobbin, and that means you go longer between having to change your bobbin. On the top, you are likely to be using an embroidery thread, and they're silky and pretty, and they make embroideries look better. But really, that's the only two differences. When we get to embroidery, I will show you how to change the needle plate for the correct one and how to change the foot. In the meantime, thanks once again to Catherine, and I'll see you next time.